Hello, and welcome once again to another edition of Pray on This. I'm your host, John Pray. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, whether it be on Rumble or on YouTube. Let's keep Canadian conservative voices going. In the Trudeau era of censorship with Bill C-111, it's going to be with us till we get rid of that disaster, the walking dumpster fire of a prime minister that we have. So let's just all be vigilant. There's one other thing that I forgot to talk about in my weekend review, and I was going to hold off till next week out of respect for one of my friend's feelings. But I have to speak on it. I can't allow it to go without talking about this. There's been a big controversy, and it flares up, then goes away, flares up and goes away, about MAIDS in this country, or medical assistance in dying. The Liberals say that we're being compassionate, and when it first came out, it was hard to argue with it, that MAIDS would be offered to the terminally ill, where there was no possible way that their life would not end. It was medically impossible to save these people, and it was medically probable that their quality of life would deteriorate to the point where they would die suffering in agonizing pain. And the reason, and that therefore it would only be humane to offer medical assistance in dying, much like we do with a treasured pet who at 14, 15, 16 years of age, they can't walk, they have trouble feeding themselves, they become incontinent, they're suffering in pain. It's quite normal for us to take them to the vet, and this phrasing is horrible to use when you think about it in terms of human lives, but put them down, put them to sleep. The reason I'm talking about it this week is that I am still deeply troubled that there were members of the Canadian Armed Forces who, when they called Veterans Affairs for things like improvements to their home, like let's get a wheelchair ramp or a chairlift in so that they go from one level of their house to the other without difficulty due to injuries suffered in the military. A lot of these injuries suffered while fighting a war in Afghanistan, and they were offered medical assistance in dying. There was some people that were so callous when they offered this. It was, well, what real quality of life do you have now anyways? You can't walk, so maybe we should just off you. One particular female veteran who's my age, 54 years old, she was told that, well, you can't walk and you're just going to be a burden on society for the next 25 or 30 years. This would be cheaper. People like me, when MAIDS first came up, argued against it, and I was told I was in the wrong. The reason I argued against it is that it's a slippery slope. These things of compassion always are a slippery slope. And I know that when it first came out, it was with the best of intentions, but we all know what the road to hell is paved with. It's paved with good intentions. It is amazing to me how quickly medical assistance in dying has gone from being for the terminally ill, those with cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, kidney failure, liver failure, CPOD, I hope I said that right, to, oh, I'm in extreme poverty, or one case of a woman who was granted medical assistance in dying because she has allergies and sensitivities, environmental sensitivities that were incredibly severe, and she couldn't afford to live in the country where she could be away from chemicals. So therefore, the only solution she could see was medical assistance in dying. Or the woman who, or the gentleman, sorry, who was living in poverty and he was about to become homeless because his rent was going up and his disability check was not. So he decided to remove himself from society. The reason I'm talking about this week is the terrifying speed at which you can make the decision to unalive yourself to when a medical professional will show up at your home and kill you. A friend of mine, who I will not name, her mother was experiencing medical challenges. Her mother is younger than my mother by 3 years. My mom is 74 years old on the 4th of July. I turned 54 a month later. But my friend's mother, and my friend is the same age as I am, was only 72. She did have some medical challenges. She had difficulty getting around. However, she still had all her faculties. She did live in some pain due to physical ailments, and she was told that she was at the beginning stages of dementia, but that with medication and therapy that she had possibly 10, 12 years, and that her life would end by natural causes before dementia took over and she was basically trapped in a shell. However, she felt to be a great burden on her husband of 51 years and, 54 years, and her children. So she decided that she would like to end her life and stop being a burden on her family. This woman was not dying. This woman's death was not imminent. She just felt that she was a burden on her husband and on her adult child, who had moved back home 5 years ago to help take care of mom. In speaking with my friend, they had a visit from a health professional, and I'm just checking the date on my calendar because I have it wrote down here. They had a visit from a health professional from the Hamilton Medical Sciences Group on Monday, April the 10th, to discuss MAIDS and the options. This is the first time that it was ever discussed with my friend's mother and her family. After a 45-minute meeting, a panel of 3, and as far as I know, and I could be mistaken, there was no doctor present. There was a nurse practitioner and 2 medical bureaucrats. Decided that yes, indeed, she qualified for MAIDS. And my friend thought that it might be a couple of months. On April 13th, they were called by a doctor who informed them that after he reviewed the interview, that he too concurred that her mother qualified for MAIDS, and that the medical procedure, that's what he called it, was the medical procedure, would be performed on Thursday, April 20th. Yesterday afternoon at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, medical professionals arrived at their home on Hamilton Mountain. They quickly talked with my friend's mother again. She signed all proper paperwork. She got comfortable in bed. An IV was put in her arm. And at 1:26 in the afternoon, she was dead. That's terrifying efficiency in killing people. And I know that there's going to be some liberal bleeding heart who watches this and says, oh, well, that's exactly what she wanted. She wanted to die with dignity and this and that. It makes me start to think about things in my life. I think I've said this before, but for a long period of my life, I used to work in civil engineering, both in the theoretical and design side, as well as in the practical side of actually building stuff. I have operated major construction equipment. I've driven big trucks, but I've also designed roads. And because of these things, and also a bit of a misspent youth playing a lot of hockey and a lot of football, high school wrestling, hunting, hiking, mountain biking. Yeah, I know I don't look like it now, but there was a time when I was a very fit young man. I have suffered injuries over the years. I have a left knee that most 80-year-old men don't have one this bad. Both of my hips are extremely damaged, arthritic, and all three joints require replacement. There are many days that I walk with a cane or two canes if it's really bad. There are many days that I have to take extreme painkillers and anti-inflammatories just to be able to get up and move. I've had days where my lovely wife has had to put socks on me and help me put my pants on, because before the drugs kick in and before I start to move, I basically can't move those joints. It could be argued that my quality of life is affected by this because of my age. I don't qualify yet for a knee replacement, and I've been told by my orthopedic surgeon that in Ontario, unless I break something within the knee joint, I will not even be looked at for a knee replacement till I'm 60 years old, which is 6 years from now. And that I'm on the waiting list to get both my hips replaced, but it could be another 3 years before it gets done. But under the new guidelines of MAIDS, I would qualify because I live with debilitating pain every single day. I also think back to some of the lowest times in my life. In 2017, my marriage of 27 years was falling apart. And it moved to the point of legal separation, followed by divorce in 2018. It was depressing. It took a lot of my financial power away. It cost me a lot in terms of dividing marital assets. And it cost me a lot in terms of friendships and also internal strife within the family. Not the family I was born into, but the family I had created. Even to this day, my daughters have basically taken sides. My oldest daughter is firmly in behind the banner of dad, and my youngest daughter, although we still speak, is firmly behind the banner of mom. The things that terrify me is in the last year, we have seen the Medical Association of Quebec advocate that parents should be allowed to get maids for children who have severe physical or mental disabilities. We've seen an argument that people with mental illness should be allowed to get maids, and it was considered by our Attorney General, David Lametti. He backed off on that one, but he was prepared to do it. And then I think back to the terrifying speed of my friend's mother. 10 days. 10 days from the decision to make a phone call, set up an appointment, which they did in the morning, and they had that appointment that afternoon. And 10 days later, that lady is dead. I can't remember, I think it was Sephora, but the commercial they used of the lady who decided to commit suicide because she was poor. She had some minor disabilities and she chose to end her life because of it. There are people who said, oh, that was a beautiful commercial. I find it to be one of the most anti-human commercials I've ever seen in my life. And for people to say that how we treat our sick and dying is the judgment of society. I wonder in 100 years how society is going to judge us. Whether people want to hear it or not, in 1933, these sorts of things started to happen in a country known as Germany, after a party known as the National Socialist German Workers' Party, led by a despicable human being named Adolf Hitler. They started with things like medical assistance in dying or euthanasia. It led to one of the most disgusting genocides in human history. I'm often reminded of the words of Jordan Peterson when I speak on subjects like this. There is a belief amongst all of us that we're all inherently good people and that we can't understand how you could be a guard at a Soviet Union gulag or one of Stalin's executioners who just coldly and calmly walked up to people, put a pistol to the back of their head and pulled the trigger, or how they could be a member of the SS and just murder people because they're Jews. We all think that we would be Oscar Schindler from Schindler's List or the family that hid Anne Frank. Or we would be like Prince Philip's mother who, in Greece, sheltered Jewish families. That's what we all want to believe we are. But I'm someone who's seen both sides of life. And I can honestly tell you that most of the people who scream and shout and call people like me a Nazi or a fascist or tell me that I don't have any feelings, you would be the first ones to put the SS on your arm. You would be the first ones who, for the good of all, would start eliminating people from society. This is a scary, slippery slope that needs to even be scaled back from where it is now. And we need to truly look at ourselves in a society. Ask yourself this. In 2015, you could not have maids. People who committed criminal offenses stayed in jail. People who committed murder didn't get bail. Drugs were not legal. In 2023, 8 years later, drugs are legal. In British Columbia, every drug known to man is legal. And they've set records for overdose deaths in a day. Violent crime is up 33% across the board. Gang crime is up 94%. Murder is up 26%. And if you don't want to be part of society anymore, you can pick up the phone. You can make up some medical excuse. And 10 days later, a doctor and a nurse will come to your home. They'll put on some soft music. You can get comfortable in your bed. They'll stick an IV in your arm. They'll talk sweetly and gently to you. And then they will inject chemicals which will stop your heart from beating, your lungs from breathing, and you will shake off this mortal coil. And it's done with a cold, brutal efficiency. To me, that is not the mark of a caring society. That's the mark of a society that doesn't know how to deal with the people who are downtrodden, poor, or suffer from disabilities, and they view them as trash. And that is how they deal with them, is they take it out. I wish you all a very wonderful weekend. Hold on to your life. It's the most precious gift that God has ever given you. God bless you all. I will talk with you soon. That, as always, is pray on this.